This time we're going to try and fix or repair, modify a little of everything this Enterprise Magellan spacecraft from Telemania, or shuttlecraft, sorry, from Telemania. It is a alarm clock, radio, etc. I got it at Goodwill for just a couple dollars. I've seen them online for anywhere from 20 to 60. I do not have instructions for it, but there is the clock on the side. This is the snooze button. It says it right there. I took the cover off so you can see the keys. It is broke in the sense that it's no longer attached to its pedestal. So here's the buttons to control the radio and alarm. I'll tell you, it's freaking loud. The volume switch is going out, so that's going to have to be worked on. This is the cover. This is the battery cover on the bottom. If you find one of these, you can see where it's separated. Takes a boatload of batteries there. 3 AA's and 1 big old 9-volt. And there it is. Telemania. Model shuttlecraft. And I found made in China, of course. This one is number 32602. So on the side here we have on off, then we have alarm off, alarm on, radio and auto, and of course the little selector is the, of course, Star Trek logo, which is kind of cool. So turn it on. When you turn it on, there's a little light that comes on inside. It's only on the one side, not the other, which I think is kind of stupid, but there might be a reason. We're going to open it up anyway. The nacelles only light up, according to what I could find, when the alarm goes off, which I also think is kind of stupid. I think it should light up when you press a button, or just have a switch that you can have this thing glowing on your desk. But that's how they built it. Doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. So I'll go over to, let's turn the volume up a little. Oh, I guess I should probably turn my radio here. That's what I'm talking about. The volume does not work. And it is loud. And I'm sorry if you had headphones on because you might not have eardrums left. And the buttons are sticky, so I can't change the stations, and all you get is static. Yeah, it needs a little work. As well as the fact it's not attached anymore. So, and then it can run on the 9-volt DC adapter as well. So, what we're going to do is take this thing apart, see if we can maybe put an auxiliary switch, hide it somewhere, maybe up here if there's room, or back here, just to turn on the nacelle lights so it can glow. Maybe find a picture of this shuttlecraft from the Next Gen series, see if any other lights were on here, you know, make it look kind of nice for those who are Star Trek fans. And we're going to see what we can do about this volume knob. See if we can make it work. We know these I know these switches all work. I tried them before I put them on the bench. It does have an antenna coiled up inside. None of the stations that it's set on its presets are actual stations. Here's the antenna right here. And then there's a groove right here for it to stick out. So when you put your battery cover back on, right here, it can still slide out the side. So I don't know what else to tell you about it. I see, looks like they got a couple screws here. There's 1 or 2 in each nacelle. One kind of looks like the bottom peels open. Kind of looks like it's just clipped right here in the front. So we're going to try and figure out how to take this apart. First I'm going to do is take the batteries out, because I don't want this thing turning on again. Because again, it is definitely loud. There's your speaker holes. Especially if you trigger the alarm. The alarm on this There's no volume control. And the alarm is the red alert sound, if you're familiar with the TV show. The ring, ring sound. Of course, I did a horrible rendition there. So we're gonna get this thing unplugged, and that way there's none of this blowing your eardrums out as we continue. So here's the batteries. Set them off to the side. Here's the volume cover. I want to open this part first, since I need to find out if this is actually broke or if there's just a screw missing. This side looks broke since there's a plastic piece sticking right there. So what I can tell is it's just held on with one screw. I don't feel any other screws hidden under the labels. Let's check the feet. Wow, those are vulcanized. I'm going to assume there's going to be under the feet pads. So you can also tell I still have a cast, so still having lots of fun dealing with everyday chores and fixing things. And yes, underneath the feet are 4 screws. So anyway, still managing. Like I said, the repairs are a little slower, things like this. I have Lemax and Department 56. Not doing those as much because I don't want to drop and break somebody else's thing at the moment, since I have limited dexterity. So now, even with all the batteries out, the clock's still on. See? No batteries. And the other day, when I got this and I set off the alarm, I couldn't get the alarm to shut off even with the snooze button. So I pulled all the batteries out and it still wouldn't stop. Which indicates to me this thing has a capacitor. Now, it did stop after a few seconds. It was making god-awful noise. It's almost like it's possessed. And the date on this that it says it passed quality control is October 22nd, 1994. So this thing is, what, 27 years old? Looks pretty good for being 27. And really good for being at a Goodwill. So it's going to take me just a few moments here to get all these screws out. I should grab an electric drill and just start doing everything with power tools. Speed it up a hair. Two more. Alrighty, there's the 5 screws. we got an 8 ohm half-watt speaker. And we have 3 screws holding the circuit board on, which has a whole bunch of wires that go, of course, up the center shaft into the shuttlecraft itself. Yeah, it's pretty basic. So let's see what's on the other side of the circuit board. There's the volume knob. It's definitely soldered to the circuit board. So let's see. Is this still a number 2? No. This one is. So it's pretty basic. We have your sliders right here, the Star Trek logos, which are right here on the bars. You have a whole bunch of buttons, which are all the buttons for right here. You have a few jumpers, and you have a whole bunch of diodes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 diodes. I see no chips, which leads me to believe they're up inside here. That's why there's so many wires. The brains are probably inside the shuttlecraft itself. So, see the buttons pop out if I turn it over. No, buttons are plastic staked in. So, next step, take a closer look at the parts. There is a screw on either side of this bar on the nacelle, so I'm assuming this centerpiece comes off and the nacelles separate. So there's one screw. Two screws and lost a screwdriver. So, oh yeah, there's the circuitry. So, how does this pop off? Seems like all my lights are dead. Alright, well, just use a cell phone light. It's just clipped. It's just clipped on. So like that. Basically, I just pressed right here in the center and lifted the back and it removed it. And there's the circuitry. Look at that. So let's remove the hull and let's get the nose off, which there are 2 screws. Their screw fell underneath, not a problem. Yeah, this one lifts forward and pops off of those clips. So now is the perfect time. You can see that it's black plastic glued in. You can see all the hot glue snot. And this ribbon cable and this ribbon cable go to the bottom. I'm wondering if I can unplug these and get more access to it. One. That's 2. And there's a ribbon cable on a lower circuit board right here. It might be hard to see. Right here. And I think that's the last ribbon cable that goes down into the base. That one I can't reach with my fingers. Let's see if I can get it with a pair of pliers. If not, we'll take the top board off. Almost. I got one side up, and got it. Now, and I'm assuming one of these capacitors, probably one of these bigger ones, is what keeps the clock going. All the capacitors look good. The board in general looks okay. Here's the antenna plug right here, right in the middle. Which that also goes down inside. What I'm trying to do is separate the top from the bottom so it's easier to work on. The screws, of course, are broke, so now we're just trying to take out the cabling that still attaches it. Like that. Alrighty. And got a half a dozen screws that hold it in. That's the 6 screws. And looks like there's a few wires that go down inside that are not in a disconnectable loom. The red and white, excuse me, the red and black wire right here, which I'm going to assume is the power. And this blue wire, which goes right here. Also this black wire right here, which I'm going to say is probably the ground. Another ground. Let's see, black. The red and black are the 9 volt. The secondary black, which is this guy, is the battery backup. That's the ground for the 3 AA's. Which means it looks like the red wire goes to the secondary board from the 3 AA's. This board down here. So they probably fed this through and then soldered it before they fully assembled it. Either they fed it up or they fed it down. I cut off the zip tie for the loom. Just so I have a better look-see at what's going on. So, to take this top board out, I would have to sever a couple of wires or desolder them. And there's the chip. It's a Toshiba chip, made in Japan. And it's probably the brains of it all and probably controls the sound. I don't see a separate sound chip on the board, although this Toshiba chip, I don't think it would have it, but it's an IC as well. So we got 2 computer chips. You have your LCD display right there. You have adjusting resistors. Very fancy here. But I also want to take one of these nacelles off, which it looks like they're held on with 2 screws. And then the yellow and brown wire, which goes up to here. And this side's a green and blue, which also goes here. There's going to be your nacelle lights. Now the nacelle, when I turned it on and got the alarm to go off and wake up the neighbors, the nacelle only appeared to have 1 LED in the very back, or 1 light. It could actually be incandescent from the 90s because LEDs were still expensive. So let's see what's in here and what we can do to upgrade this thing. And that screwdriver's too big. So what's that one? Perfect. That's right, the one I had I dropped. Here's the screw that fell out. Here's the nacelle, which there are 3 screws. do not use the same size screws at all on this thing. Holy smokes. Jeez. That's too big. I'm also wondering if maybe they put a drop of glue or something on these because they don't want to turn. There we go. Okay, so that's the screws for this. Now let's get it to pop apart. Yep, it's one light with two reflectors, and that is an incandescent light bulb. That is a little itty bitty incandescent light bulb. I would probably change these to an LED. And I would probably put two in here, one at both ends, so it's not using a reflector that has glue in the middle of it, reducing its reflectability. I'm just not sure what voltage this thing is sending out, because of course, if I put in a white, as an example, LED, a lot of those run at around 3 to 5 volts. If this thing is sending this 9 volts, it will pop the LED. So I need to do a voltage check by turning it on and getting the alarm to go off with this meter on where these wires come out of the board, or on the back of this little circuit board that's in here, which is also screwed and glued in, and the reflector is also screwed and glued in. It is very dim. I mean, the plastic does shine through, but it's just not very good. It's subpar in my opinion. But for 1994, this is probably really good. And it looks good for being 27 years old. So, it looks like to get this out, if you wanted to solder in an LED with a resistor on its original pad, you would break the reflector out because it's hot glued in. I can see the hot glue where the wires go. Then there's a screw right here, which is really hard to see because I can't lift it all when I drop it with the dexterity issues. And that appears to be it. And this cap has grooves in it like a cam lock, which is odd because there's no cam lock grooves in here. I think they're using the cam lock just to hold the pin so it stays centered on assembly. There's a pin sticking out. And there's a pin down here too. So I think they're using the cam lock as a pin alignment. So if I rotate it, yeah, that's what they're doing. Rotate it this way to keep the wires out of the way, and drop it in. Yeah, so they're using the cam lock notch for the pin. So you don't hear the deafening alarm since I don't have any volume control. And I also want to get some pictures from the next gen series of this shuttlecraft, so I can see what additional lights we may want to add that we can tap off the power coming in. Because maybe for the alarm we'll just leave these lights original and just run a secondary set of wires in here for just making it light up. I used to have a model of the Enterprise as well as a Borg ship and a Romulan ship. And there were those big models or like that they lit up and made sounds. I liked them because they lit up and made sounds. This thing, I think the lighting is subpar, especially since it only has 2 lights, not counting the backlight for the screen. And the sound is obnoxious, but that's because there's no volume control. And I think it's running the speaker at full power, which is causing it to distort, it makes it sound horrible. So, and then there's the incandescent yellow warm white light right here that makes the screen glow. It's just the one, and again it's also incandescent, so I want to check the voltage because I'd rather replace this and put one over here and make them LED. I've done it before on radios, for the displays on radios. It can be done, but before you just jump into it, you need to make sure your voltage is. And since this has a 9-volt battery and a 9-volt power port, I'm going to assume they're going to be trying to run these close to 9 volts. A lot of these little incandescent bulbs can go up to 12. And how they made them a golden or warmer color was to just drop the voltage to them. They wouldn't actually put a resistor on them. They just say, well, it's a 12-volt light, we put 9 volts to it, it's not as bright, therefore it's in your color range or your temperature range. So stop here for a moment. I'm going to see what I can do about getting this set up for the next step. We'll try and get it done faster since I can't believe this thing's already over 32 minutes of me just getting it to this point. But again, everything's slower with a cast. So I shall return after I do some testing, so I'm not wasting more time. Be one moment, please. Okay, I have removed the incandescent bulb right there. Stuck 2 white LEDs in here, which are 3 volts. That's what this actually gets. This little glass bulb only got 3 volts. These LEDs run at 3 to 3.2. So it illuminates the screen more evenly. So let's turn off some light to make it a little easier. There we go. And next step is I'm going to do the nacelle. Now the nacelle just had 1 light that reflects from here to this side over here, and I'm going to put 2 blue LEDs in its place, 1 at each end. So put the batteries completely in. So there's the display. There's the radio station. So but when the nacelle gets power, these is 3 volts. This gets 5. The blue LED that I have is designed to run it at between 3.5 and 4, so I am going to have to put a resistor in line. Also, since the other side is a reflector, I'm going to have to run a set of wires, which isn't that hard. I mean, there's a lot of room in here, and as long as you keep the wires away from the blue, you can do it without a problem. You might be able to see. If I can maneuver all this without damaging it. I just solder the wires across the light to the other side, like so, and then I just use hot glue. So, and when I'm doing it, I disconnect the batteries. I take the 9-volt out and I take one of the AA's out, like that, and that breaks all circuits. So in case I do something like drop a screw or arc the system, it doesn't burn it out. And you can see it's still on. The lights went down slowly. That's because there's capacitors, which you can see there's tons of them. So anyhow, the next step is to build the nacelles using some blue LEDs and a resistor. I'm going to check the brightnesses and figure out which resistor looks the best, or makes the light look the best through this blue lens. I tried a white light, one of these, and I did not like the way it glowed. It made a really bright light blue hotspot, and then it dulled out, and the same on the other side. With blue, because this is already blue plastic, it kind of gave it a nice even blue when I was using a LED tester and putting 2 lights in here. So, also, when you take this reflector off of the front side of the nacelle, when you start to unscrew it to break the glue, this thing comes completely out. So I'm also going to get in here with a cotton swab and some rubbing alcohol and clean out all the gunk, so that way it looks nice. I'll also use alcohol on this base once it's back together, clean off the residue from the sticker, and just to clean off any residue in general. I'm also going to use rubbing alcohol on the volume knob, although it sounds a lot better now just from disassembling it and just blowing it out. Just dust and crap that got inside. So hopefully when this is done, it'll look better and function. Probably not going to stick the secondary switch in it. If you did decide to do that, you would have to use a diode so you don't backfeed the circuit board. It's not that hard to do. Plenty of circuits online, especially on YouTube, that show you how to do it. Because I want to try and keep this looking original, because it is going to be a gift once it's done. So that way it's completely fine. If you hear the hum, I'm sorry. The fluorescent lamp right above me just started humming. So I want it to look just like it did when it was made from the manufacturer, just with some slight upgrades, being LED lights, better illumination on the screen. I've already tested it by putting this on and checking the white lights to see if this looks better, and it does. It's better in low light than in with all my lights on. So the next step is to, and I put some glue on the base so it's one piece. It's not fully glued on. I tried using some Gorilla Glue. It will not hold. I'm not sure why. It's bonding to the black plastic, but it's not sticking to the gray. So it might be a different type of material. It might take longer. Not sure the cause. So I have a bead of hot glue on one side just to keep it stable so I don't yank any of the wires out. When I'm done, I'll do a full glue and then clean off any excessive residue from the gluing. So the next step is to modify the nacelles with 2 blue LEDs, one at each end. And this is conductive. So if you decide to do this yourself or something similar, be aware that this is a metal disc, and if the LED is glued to it, that if the 2 leads are touching, they're going to ground out, or short out, sorry. So this is on a circuit board, which is glued in, which I'm going to pop out, and then desolder and attach it to this circuit board so it fits back in the center. But it is sending 5 volts to these, so they're a brighter white, and only 3 volts to that, which made it that golden white or golden yellow. So I'm going to dim these a hair so I don't overpower my LEDs, and then these are just running at full power, no resistor. Since no matter if I tried it by running off a power supply, leads right here, at 9 volts coming in, which is what it takes on the side, or running it off the 9 volt and the 4.5 volt power from the 2 sets of batteries, I never got more than 3 volts. Usually it averaged 2.9. So these are slightly dimmer than their rating, since they're rated for 3 to 3.2. So when you buy LEDs, they have voltage ratings on them, so that way you know what voltage to run at. Then you can use the Ohm law calculator online, or if you know it in your head, to figure out the resistors you need. If you need one, I will need them for the nacelles, but not for the screen. Technically, you should put a small resistor in line, a 1 ohm, 2 ohm, just something to help prevent the circuit from any power surges, because this will probably just be run on batteries. I'm not worried about a power surge from a battery. But also, these lights only come on if you flip the switch on the side for the light, the on button. That's why I can turn them off with a switch. Other than that, they don't turn on. That's all the on button's supposed to do. So that's where we're at. So now I'm going to start working on the nacelle, cleaning it, getting the LEDs in, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Then I'll do the other side, or I'll do them both together if I get the correct codes. Just so you can see the inside of the nacelle before I pause, it is heat staked in. You can see these little tabs that are at the top and the bottom. That's where they heat it and fold it over to hold the blue plastic in, or heat staking. So this blue plastic doesn't come out unless you remove all that heat staking. So if you clean it, just clean it as it sits. Don't try and disassemble and push it out. Whereas this, if you did take the nacelle out, you can remove this piece and get in there with a cotton swab and get all that dust out. Because you can see there's the dusty side, non-dusty. So, kind of... Oh, and you can't put it... It's like, some people are like, oh, it just rotated upside down. Nobody will notice. You can't. It's got little notches that line up. So that way you can only put this in one way. Try and put it in another way. It doesn't sit. Because the notches don't line up. So, can't cheat. You have to actually clean it. So, I did look up online, and it looks like the only lights on this craft were on the sides and in the back. Some of the images I found showed these vents glowing white, although this is just a sticker. Some didn't. So, because that's a decal and there's nothing in here to do anything with, I'm not going to try and make that light up. If I put bright lights in here enough to illuminate here, it's also going to radiate through the rest of the plastic. So we're just going to leave it as just the nacelles and the screen. And then just give it a good cleaning and see if we can get it to pick up some radio stations and minimize the amount of static from the volume knob. Or completely eliminate it altogether. So that's where we're at. So the first step was to get the lights in. They're sitting just on the sides, just like it was over here with the original. I screwed the circuit board down so I can get as much wiring down inside as possible so I could tip it and clean the volume knob, which again I just blew out, and now nacelle. So that's the next step. So we shall return. Alright, I got the one nacelle. It's got the two blue LEDs in it, and it takes about a 100 ohm resistor to dim it down to the right brightness, as well as not overdrawing or putting too much power through it. But the yellow wires are the ground, and I'm going to touch it to the positive. Yeah, it's hard to tell with the lighting. Kill a little bit more light here. That's a much more even glow. Using two blue LEDs on each end. It's only held together with one screw at the moment, just to test it. And the hot glue was used to glue the LED to the side that didn't have it, and also to insulate it from itself, meaning it's not shorted out. So this nacelle is now brighter, and it's not a hot spot at one end. Now we have LEDs at both sides. And all I did is put an LED to the circuit board that was there, and then I ran two wires to the nose, and then soldered them on. The resistor I'm going to put up here, which is why I cut the ground wire. I'm going to put the 100 ohm resistor on the ground wire itself, up here inside the body of the shuttlecraft. I might even just put them together. So I'll just remove this one completely, and then use the split at the resistor, since it's a 100 ohm resistor, and it's going to be drawing well under the quarter watt I'm going to be using. I'm using a quarter watt 100 ohm resistor, according to using the Ohm's law test. So I'm going to use a total of 4 blue LEDs, 2 in each nacelle, and 2 white LEDs. So I'm taking out 3 incandescent lights and replacing them with 6 LEDs to give a better view of the screen, a much better light of the nacelles, and it's technically going to draw less power, although we're not talking a huge amount, because the nacelles only light up during the alarm, and the screen only lights up when you flip the switch that says on for the lighting. But at least if you do leave them on for any duration of time, you'll consume less energy, as the LEDs draw a lot less power than the 3 and 5 volt incandescent bulbs. So I'm going to take this one out now, and I'll solder it all up, and I'll show you how I did it, since I forgot to show a picture of this one before I put the screw in it. So you'll see how I attach the light back to the circuit board, and how I ran the wires to their side, which the circuit board's in the back and the wires run to the LED in the front, or this is where the circuitry is, the little PCB board, and this is where the new light is, so there's a light on both ends. I also thought it was kind of strange that they'd have the light here when the fattest part of the blue is up front, where you'd want more light. But, you know, it's older than dirt, and they just probably wanted to look cool, and at the time it was probably one of the most unique things out there. So I'm going to go ahead and just get this one screwed all back together and stuck back into its hole, and then get this one off, and we'll show you how I soldered up this by repeating it over here. I did scrub out as much of the dirt as I could. It does still have some. It's stained because no matter how I scrub it, whether I use a pick, toothpick, paper towel, anything, some of it always comes back, but it's much cleaner. It's no longer that grayish color. So that's where we're at. I'm going to turn the light back on. So, and yeah. So next step is to reassemble. Take this one off, show you how it's all soldered up, and get that resistor in line for these two yellow wires, which again is the ground. And then just put it back together, and then test the circuit board on the bottom again to make sure all the buttons still function, and that if that switch is still staticky, I'll clean it with some alcohol, get the contacts clean, and see if that helps remove any static from the switch, so when the alarm goes off or you adjust the volume on the radio, you don't get that sound. So shall return momentarily. Okay, it's all back together. Here's the antenna, so it gets better signal. I have it running out the back. So battery packs put back in the bottom. The cord comes through the little notch. I put the cover back on for the plate. And you may have noticed since yesterday, in my time on the camera, it's been seconds. I no longer have the cast. I'm now back into a brace. So the door opens. So you have access to the buttons. And if I flip the on, this lights up. And then if I flip this to... Still a little staticky. Well, we're going to do it in the dark. Now you can see the clock, the nacelles. You can see on the bench the glow it puts off. Looks a lot better having a solid section and not a dim light that slowly reflects over. That's the alarm. And then when you turn the alarm off, the nacelles go into a much dimmer state. They stay on, but they're just dim. They go real dim, but they never turn 100% off. So when it's in alarm mode, it's an alarm off right now. So yeah, it's really hard to see, but they're still lightly glowing. I don't know if that has to do with the capacitor and the factory LEDs now, so there's less draw, or if it's just how they've always been and you just never could see it because the incandescents were so dim. Then turn off the light. So I cleaned the switch and I replaced the speaker. It's a lot clearer, but the switch still has a little hitch in it, which is why it went staticky quiet, staticky loud. Unfortunately, I can't find a replacement with the same resistance in a 3-wire switch. A lot of rotary switches that I could find that were similar have 5 pins like that, and this one has 3. And then the third pin has a shielded wire, and it actually has 2 points of solder, which I thought was kind of interesting. So unfortunately the speaker is still a little staticky if you spin the wheel too fast or too hard. If we go to radio.
Is that Dunkin's new holiday blend coffee?
Sure is, because sometimes the holidays just call for Dunkin'. What's in it? A spark of holiday spirit.
It's a little staticky.
Very own holiday shop.
And I even use a much higher quality speaker. This is a 8 ohm 2 watt. I'm interfering with it, so I'm going to turn it down. Even this 8 ohm 2 watt was getting distorted as well. So I don't think it's much the speaker quality, because it is a quite low quality speaker at a half watt 8 ohm and it's very small. The other speaker was blown. It was all dried out, and the I don't remember the part, but this piece right here that holds the cone to the outer edge was starting to crack and turn into dust. But I put a new speaker in here that's an 8 ohm half watt, and unfortunately the volume it can put out is stronger than half watt, so it distorts the hell out of the speaker. But on low power or low volume, the speaker is relatively clear as long as you have nothing interfering with the antenna. This light that's right here actually interferes with the antenna, and so does the light I have over here to do with the step down from the 120 volts to the LED 12 volts that they run at. So, but it does pick up all the stations. AM it doesn't pick up very well because it is an AM/FM radio, so I'm not sure if that's due to the room I'm in, the interference I get, or it just has a crappy AM receiver. Don't know. It does have a good memory though. The memory does work, which is what it says it does in the manual. The manual I found was not for this specific model. It's for a different model, so I'm not quite sure the complete differences. So I'm going to turn it off. And there again, the light's off, and then this will slowly fade out to nothingness over time. But there it is. The inside of the... what was the name of the company again? Telemania Shuttle Craft from Star Trek Next Generation, the 1701D Magellan Shuttlecraft number 15, AM/FM, clock, radio, alarm, where your controls are under this hidden panel. You got two switches on the side, and then the Star Trek logo is your snooze button when you set an alarm. It also has a timer. You can set it for 30, 60, 90, 120 minutes, so you can turn the radio on, and then it turns itself off. So it's got a sleep timer as well. So, and that does work. I set it for 90 minutes, and I checked it, and it dropped after about 10 minutes. It was at 80 minutes. So it does count correctly. It's just the manuals I can find online don't have the exact programming for this, so I don't know how to do the presets. I'm not worried about setting the clock right now. I'm probably going to take the batteries out before I put it in a box. So setting the clock's a moot point. So, but anyhow, that is how to open it, how to modify it from incandescent to LED on your nacelles, how to make your screen brighter from taking out the one incandescent to make it two white LEDs. The resistor you need 100 ohms, and because of the low power draw, you don't have to put them on each nacelle. Just connect the two grounds together and ground it through the, or put the resistor on the ground. You're good to go. I did clean out the switch with alcohol. Like I said, I used a paintbrush that came out of a watercolors kit, one of those kits that comes like 40 paintbrushes because most kids just throw them away, to get inside of the switch. The switch does work better. Replace the speaker with a new speaker so it's not as crappy. I mean, it's not high quality in any sense of the fashion. So, and reattach the base. I'm going to clean up the glue a little bit now that it's hardened, so it's not so obvious, and put it all back together again. So this will go off to a Star Trek fan who was upset that I found it first at a Goodwill. So a whatever $3 or $4 Goodwill find, and a couple hours of tinkering with it with a bad hand, and it's back to close to what it was when it came out in the 90s, slightly upgraded with the LEDs, and it draws less power. So technically when the nacelles are on and the light is on in the face, the 9-volt battery will last longer. The 9-volt battery is the main power. The 4.5 volt or the 3 AA's is its backup memory power. So, and then if you really want to, you can plug in a 9-volt right there, 9-volt AC adapter. So anyhow, hopefully you enjoyed it, and until the next one, Now that my hand's slowly coming back to normal, I'll start repairing the Lemax, so I'm less likely to drop and or break them with my loss of mobility.